tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The law, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. Today, we're bringing you a review of a film being touted as the best reviewed horror movie of the year. And this one is called The Harbinger. And this one, because it's two Harbingers, you got to be careful which one you see. This one is brought to you by XYZ Films. So this is the latest Harbinger, not the one before it. I think came out like September-ish, August. This one is a late December release one of, again, The Harbinger, but the correct one. Very rare that you get two horror movies with the same name in the same year. But here's a quick synopsis. During the COVID-19 lockdown, two friends are stalked in their dreams by an ancient plague demon. And this is directed by Mitton. It stars Gabby Beans as Monique. It stars Miles Walker as Lau. It stars Raymond Anthony Thomas. It stars Emily Davis as Mavis. And Laura Hisinger. I think I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, I apologize. And she plays a very small role, but she's also the wife of the director. She plays a demonologist in this film. And it's very rare that I would ever bring up someone who only has like 3 scenes in a movie, but it's a reason why I'm bringing her up in this movie and why you need to really check it out. So, my first impressions of The Harbinger is all the hype around this being the best reviewed horror movie of the year is 1,000% justified. This is not necessarily a slow burn, but this is a nightmarish type of horror film where it's not full of jump scares. It's almost gore free, but it's so haunting that this is a type of film that can stay with you just because of what it represents. So from the beginning of the film, we meet Monique's character. We meet Gabby's character, Monique, and she's with her brother and her father as they decided to quarantine at home because this is taking place at what seems to be the height of the global pandemic and all the fear that came along with it. Like, we see her brother come in from the grocery store. He brings up like, hey, I didn't even have to get out my car. They just brought the groceries to me. The man had on a suit, a hazmat suit, mask, gloves. Like, he didn't touch anything. So we understand we're experiencing, which for some people seems like a long time ago. It's only a couple years ago. We're experiencing what it felt like in that time period where isolation was just so bad for so many people. And with Monique here, we see her with her family. Then she gets a call from a friend. And basically a friend telling her, I need help. Like, I can't be by myself. It's life or death. And then that's when the movie shifts. And that's part of when the nightmare elements of the film kicks in. Because as we see Monique leaving, as we see her having this discussion with her family, we remember those discussions during the pandemic of, like, how is it to leave? If we live with someone, the fear of bringing something back, the fear of losing someone because of something you did, the fear of putting yourself at risk for even going out there. We see this all written all over Monique's face, but we also see it written over her dad's face as he is terrified. As he says at the table with her, like, you're like my hope. You're my angel. You're someone who brought me out of the darkness. And I understand that you want to be that for your friend, or you are that for your friend, but I don't want you to go. It is such a poignant moment that you don't normally get in films that are supposed to be horror films. And that's one thing Andy here as a director does an amazing job. I think he's a writer, director, producer. He's everything in this film, but he's everything for this movie. But this is things you don't get normally from horror films. That the type of feel that you get, that it moves like a drama at times. And here with this scene, that scene is so powerful. And it conveys so much of the fear of what people had during the pandemic. And when you see that fear over Monique's face, but you also understand that she feels an obligation to go to her friend. So once we get to her visiting Mavis, played by Emily Davis here, we get the Harbinger. We get the issues that Emily's have. And it's a scene here between them two where She first steps into Mavis's apartment, and again, it's a fear moment that it's only a fear moment because we lived through the horrors of the pandemic of them just seeing each other and Mavis saying, "Man, I wish I could just see you, your face without your mask on," as both of them have masks on. And we see the fear of them taking off their masks just to greet each other, and then the relaxation that hit when you were with someone who you trusted, and then all of that kicks in. And then we get Mavis telling Monique about the Harbinger, her fear, her nightmares. And here is where we get why this movie is not necessarily a jump scare horror film, but a more of a nightmarish type of horror film, is that we understand that the Harbinger, this demon, this entity, feeds off of loneliness. So just imagine back in 2020 when everything was going on, if a demon, monster, whatever came around and he fed off of people being lonely. That's what takes this film to me to a different level than a lot of other horror movies, especially a lot of other COVID horror movies. There's only one that I've seen this year that compares to this one, but this one just tackles it in a different format of making it where this demon feeds off of people's loneliness at a time where everyone was lonely. And as the film builds just as the horror aspects of the Harbinger, how he integrates into your dreams. It reminded me a lot in pacing of the first Nightmare on Elm Street, with the way the Freddy Krueger character just integrated himself into people's dreams and really wrecked them and destroyed them. Here with the Harbinger, we get a character that, like, it feels like his fear is passed on from person to person. Like, if a person talks about it, we get the fear of the Harbinger. It's an amazing scene with Laura, and that's why I said I don't talk about people who are only in 2 or 3 scenes in a film. It's a scene in this film where Monique and Mavis talk to the demonologist, which is played by Laura. And when they're on a Zoom call with her and they start talking about the Harbinger, we see her shut them down immediately and let them know, like, you're not the first people to bring this up, but she kind of gives us the rules of what the Harbinger can do, cannot do, what this thing feeds off of. It is a powerful scene. It is it's a scene that is scary in nature, but not in like the jumpness of what we get from modern day horror. This feels like a more dramatic form of horror here with the Harbinger, but it works so well. Partially because Andy directs this movie amazingly well. This is a great directed film, to the extent where the performances and the direction are so good, you can overlook obvious plot holes here. Obvious plot holes here. You can overlook them because the performances are so good and the direction is amazing. And I can understand why people think this is, and I understand why, from a review standpoint, this is the best reviewed horror film of the year. It stands on its own. The score is great here. We get great cinematography. It's some amazing shots in this movie. For a film that is more low budget, it doesn't let the point that its budget is small compromise the integrity of the film. And because of that, I think you're transformed into this world. You're transformed into these 2 characters who are the ones primarily on screen. And as they fear this demonic presence, you start to fear this demonic presence. But it also, again, brings up questions of what it means to be lonely, how important it is to be connected to other humans. How at times, even when you want to be connected to people, maybe that's not the best thing for you. It evokes so many questions. It worked the COVID horror angle possibly better than any other film I've seen that dealt with dealt with the pandemic. This movie works well. Matter of fact, this may be the best I've ever seen a film, horror or not, deal with the pandemic and make it an element of a film that makes the film better. You don't normally get that. You get the little trick here and there with this situation, and it doesn't really make the film better. It just gives you a different spin on what the film could be. Here, like the film, the monster, everything is built off of the pandemic. It's great the way they did that. So the Harbinger, brought to you by XYZ Film, which is in for this year. I've seen a lot of films from him, which catching me off guard because XYZ Films to me is becoming what I remember Blumhouse at the beginning. It's a smaller studio, clearly, that either acquiring these films or making these films or however you see fit, but they are producing really good horror thriller content. And again, this is not a promotion for them, but if you see a film by them at this point, it most likely the quality is going to be really good, like this one is. But again, the Harbinger, brought to you by XYZ Film. There's drops on VOD platforms on December 1st. You can catch it in some select there. There's also, out of a possible 10, I'm going to give the Harbinger a 9.5 out of 10. This could be the best horror movie I've seen this year. But again, it's not a jump scare horror movie. It's not a gory horror movie. It's just that atmospheric type of horror. I love that type of horror because it shows the skill of the writer and the skill of the director and the skill of the actors here. Gabby, who plays Monique, is amazing in this movie. She's amazing in this movie. And again, a lot of it is just her and Emily Davis playing off of each other. Some of the best acting in a horror movie I've seen in the last couple of years. Definitely for this year. This could be the best horror movie I've seen this year, including films that possibly won't be released until next year that I happen to see at a couple of film festivals. This one, it just feels a cut above most of the horror movies. So please check it out when it drops on December the 1st on every possible VOD platform. You'll be able to check it out and let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.